Hello everyone. I wanted to make a short video this morning. I'm going to be in my favorite book, nearly, of the Bible, Mark. I'm going to be in Mark 9:33 through 37, and then I'm going to turn over and read Mark 13 through 16. And it said, and he came to Capernaum, and being in the house, he asked them, what was it that ye disputed among yourselves by the way? But they held their peace, uh, for by the way they had disputed among themselves who should be the greatest. And he sat down and called the 12, and said unto them, if a man desire to be first, the same shall be last of all, and the servant of all. And he took a child, and he set him in the midst of them, and when he had taken him in his arms, he said unto them, whosoever shall receive one of such children in my name receiveth me, and whosoever receiveth me receiveth not me, but him that sent him. And Mark 10:13 through 16, and said they brought little young children to him, that he should touch them. And his disciples rebuked them, those that brought them. But when Jesus saw it, he was much displeased, and said, suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of God. Verily I say unto you, whosoever shall receive the kingdom of God as a little child, he shall not enter therein. And he took him up in his arms, and put his hands upon them, and blessed them. I love little children. I always have. I just really love them. And the little kids at our church, they'll come in, and I'll pick them up. I said, let's see if you've grown any, and pick them up. And it's so good, the people that's good to little children. I know Brother Shirley Byram ran a revival. He ran 2 years in a row, I believe. And my grandson Hunter was small then, and he fell in love with Brother Shirley, and he couldn't wait for Brother Shirley to come back. And I was at Scottsboro once, and this little boy come by, and Brother Shirley was sitting down beside me, and he asked this little boy, he said, have you got any money? And the little boy shook his head, no. Brother Shirley took out some change and stuck it in that little boy's pocket and said, this will make you feel better. So little children are important to me, and the Lord surely esteemed them high. I've seen so many children that's been healed that couldn't talk, um, from anywhere from 2 to 7 years old. It's like a stroke victim. They can't get it out in the words. I think there's a condition, and it may be, it's been a long time since I looked it up, but it may be called apraxia or something. But I've seen them start talking, and it just thrills me. And I'll tell you about some if the Lord will prompt me during this thing. Job 14, in verse 4 and 5 says, who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? No, not one. Seeing his days are determined, the numbers of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds, he cannot pass. A clean thing out of an unclean. You know, when these little kids, when they're born, they're so precious, so innocent, that they'd go right on to heaven. But after a while, they pick up the unclean things of man, and they tell a lie, and liars are going to be in the lake of fire. And they're an infant, they go on to heaven, they keep growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and at some point they reach the age of accountability, and I'd like to help them as much as I can. I remember the people when I was growing up, the adults that was good to me when I was a child, and the ones that just maybe was indifferent, and the ones that wasn't so good. I had an uncle, and I think I've told it on a previous video. He lived with us for a while, and he always kept it was a car. He liked cars, and he'd have me and my brother Dwayne that's passed on. He'd have us wash them, and I know I just smeared over it nearly, and he'd give me $1 and Dwayne $1, and that was in 1964. It's pretty good. I never forgot him. I never will forget him. And then I had an aunt that I had somebody that wasn't so good, and I didn't forget that one either. My mother's brother, Uncle Frank McAnally, he he was good to us. I remember him taking us across the river over somewhere around Morgan City, Union Grove area in there, and there was a store that, and some of you people from that area might remember it, had a checkerboard on it. I guess they sold Purina feed, and they sold ice cream. I know that. And he'd take us in there and he'd buy us a ice cream cone. It's probably a nickel or a dime back then, and we'd eat it. And he'd say, "You want another one?" And we'd eat another one. And he just delighted in seeing you. He wanted to fill you up with ice cream. He'd just keep buying them as long as you could eat them. And I've told you about my grandson, Grant Gaines. We had so many different. I volunteered to keep him because I loved him, and we had a good time. I was about 42 or 3, or maybe 4, something like that, and I was more able to do things. And he was a child of the Power Rangers, Rocket Sock'em, and he'd want to ride my back, and he'd want to wrestle in the floor. I'd do so much, crawl on our bellies like an army man. And after a while, I've told you the story about the Nintendo, but he taught me a lot of lessons. And after a while, I got so tired. I said, "Can we sit and play something?" He said, "No, don't sit." I said, "Well, what about if we play school?" I didn't know how I was going to play school, but I just thought that if maybe we could just sit for just a few minutes and I'd get a break. I don't want to play school. So I said, "Did you bring anything in that bag that we could play?" And he said, "Nintendo." I said, "Well, bring it out here." So he was about 4 or 5 years old, and he hooked it up to the TV. He said, "I got 2 players. You go first." And he showed me how, he said, he gave me my controller, and he said, "Just make him go this way. Just 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 make him jump." And so it was Mario Brothers, I think, and I went down the road, and I wasn't down there no time, and the monsters eat me up, and I was out of the game. He said, "My time, my turn." So then he went past where the monsters eat me. The next thing I know, he was on a motorboat, and then he was on another screen. He was on an airplane, and I took it spiritually, and I thought I never would have saw those screens. There's so many levels and so many screens in the ways of the Lord that we haven't seen, but they're there just because we haven't seen them. It's God wants to do some great things for us. If somebody came back, like that movie Back to the Future, if somebody came back from the 1800s and they saw things like automobiles and computers and things, if you they probably couldn't believe it. I mean, we got cell phones that go down the road. I can be going down the road 55 miles an hour and meet somebody coming 55 miles an hour, and if I'm using my cell phone and he's using his or her, whichever, they don't bump into each other. It picks up wherever that one I'm calling is, and it's just a fax machine. You can put a piece of paper in it, and 18 seconds later, whatever, it comes out in California. It's just mind blowing. Another one on Grant. He was eat some chocolate. I sold chocolate Easter candy, and he eats some of that. He was bouncing off the walls, and I think I spatted him a little bit, and I said, "I'm going to bed." He always slept with me if he spent the night with us, and but I thought, well, I was so grouchy he wouldn't that. And I gave him a pretty good chewing out and a little splat. And I was laying there feeling like a hill. And I heard steps coming down the hallway. And I thought, oh, my goodness, surely he's not going to come try to lay down with me after that. And I felt like yelling down the hall, "Don't come back here. There's a grouch in the bed." But I didn't do it. Here he came. He stood at the door. And he said, "Papa." And I said, "Yeah, baby." And he said, "Can I lay down with you?" And I said, yeah, come ahead. And he laid down with me. He always wanted to lay on my arm. He said, Papa, can I lay on your arm? And I said, yeah. And I was still feeling so bad. And I said, Grant, I said, will you forgive Papa? And he looked at me with eyes that was so like he couldn't believe the words coming out of my mouth. And he said, yeah. And I said, I'm sorry. And he said, yeah. Said, we best buds, Papa. So that's what I think about with adults now. What a child taught me. We're best buds. Don't let anything come against you and somebody else, because you don't know which that one of you may be gone within 24 hours. So I try to treat everybody like they're going to be gone in 24 hours. And my other grandson, Hunter, he always asks his mother, Mama, do you know? Tanya, my daughter, Tanya Gaines, and he'd say, Mama, did you know? And she'd say, what, Hunter? And he'd tell her what he wanted to tell her. And she was sitting on the couch, and she was pretty sad. And children can pick up on these things. And he said, Mama, did you know? And she said, what, Hunter? And he said, he's got the whole world in his hands. I've always got a lot of good out of nursery rhymes and children's stories. I've got a great grandson that we keep on Tuesdays a lot of times right now, and I'm going back through it again. Three Pigs and the Three Bears, and I know the Three Bears in Goldilocks. It was too hot and it was too cold. It was too hard and it was too soft. Those kind of things. And I think about I call them Goldilocks Christians. It's never just right for them. It's something. It's not just right. It's too this or too that, and they can't work. Thought about a little boy that went to school, and they was going to have a school play, and she worried about him, and she couldn't wait for him to come in. And when he come off the bus or whatever, she said, "Did you get a good play? Get a good part in the play?" He said, "Yeah, I got the best part." She thought, "My goodness, he must be the king or something." And she said, "What part did you get?" And he said, "I get to clap and cheer." So in the church, that's a good part to have. I thought about the little boy and the French fries. Man, he took his son to McDonald's, and he got him some French fries, and they was really hot. I like them if they're real hot and fresh. And the dad thought he'd just get one, and the little boy said, "Mine." And it teaches us that we tell the Lord He wants us to do something. We say it's mine, and but really, it's nothing that belongs to us. My little great grandson that I get to see on Tuesdays, he saw the watch on my arm, and he said, "My this," and so they get in that little stage where everything is theirs. If Jesus was in the temple at 12 years old. My goodness, I mean, what does a person know at 12? But he astonished the scholars. If you continue to defend your child's wrong behavior, one day you'll have to pay an attorney to do the same thing. So we need to bring them up in the way that we'd have them go. Teachers possess a tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. They can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. We all know teachers that took a good subject and made it boring, or took a mediocre subject and made it really had a lot of flavor to it. We can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all cases, it's my response that decides whether a situation will be escalated or de-escalated. We can humanize a child or dehumanize him. Every child is born an achiever. We mess it up sometimes, but they're born. And we do childish behavior. If I like it, it's mine. If it's in my hand, it's mine. If I can take it from you, it's mine. If I had it a little while ago, it's mine. If it's mine, it must never appear to be yours in any way. If I'm doing or building something, all the pieces are mine. It looks like mine. It's mine. I saw it first. It's mine. If you are playing with something and you put it down, it automatically becomes mine. But if it's broken, it's yours. Uh, I remember when I was growing up, we had a report card that had the reading, writing, and arithmetic and all that on there. And my parents wanted me to do um, good of those. But they also had a conduct on the other side of the card. Uh, respects the rights and property of others, works well and plays well with others and things. They was interested in that part. The uh, the behavior part. I'm gonna read a little story I could tell you, but I might leave out a part. But it says, "Don't ever underestimate the power of the word." The movie Stand and Deliver portrayed the story of Jamie Escalante, who was an incredibly successful teacher in a rough high school. In his classes were two students named Johnny. One was a bright student and a joy to teach. The other wasted his talent and bucked authority. At the first PTA meeting for parents, Johnny's mother asked Jamie to report on her son's progress. His reply was, "Johnny is a joy to have in my class. I'm glad he's there." The next day, the rebellious Johnny walked into the classroom with a new attitude and demeanor. He ran up to Mr. Escalante and said, "My mom told me what you said about me. I've never had a teacher who wanted me." He became a model student. Uh, the teacher had thought that Johnny's mother was the mother of his best student. His comments were meant for the other Johnny, but the results were dramatic. The word spoken at the right moment, carefully crafted, caused dramatic change. Encourage someone. Communication is an art. 1 Corinthians 14:20 says, "Brethren, be not children in understanding, howbeit be in malice be ye children, but in understanding be men." Little children, they'll have a squabble over a toy, get into it, and then they make up and they sharing in just a few minutes. We are to be that same way. The children look to us. I heard a story about and there's different versions around, but a wife told her husband, said, "You need to take their son, you need to take him and do something with him." And the man said, "I'm so busy, I'm too busy, but we need to make time for our children." So the wife told him, just, so he decided to take him fishing. They went that day, they fished, and they came back in, and the dad come in first, and the wife says, how did y'all do today?" And he said, "It was the rain the whole time. It was the worst day of my life." And in a minute, the little boy come through and she said, "How was your day today?" And he said, "Just me and my dad. Nobody else." Said it was the best day of my life. So, and when we're growing up, we think we're smarter than our parents. We can't wait for our kids to walk and talk, and then they do that. And when they finally do, we tell them to sit down and shut up. We put programming in their heads about they can't do this, they can't do that, and they're not adequate in different ways. We program, and it takes years of reprogramming and delete to get that out of them. I heard this. This is not my original, so don't blast me on it. I'm just repeating. But a man said, "We do the opposite. We tie the dog up and let the kids go wild. We ought to watch the kids and not put as much attention on the other." I saw a documentary about teaching kids or whatever, and the man was talking to some women, about their children. And he said, "Have you taught your children not to go with strangers?" Yes, we have. Are you confident that that they won't? Yes, I know they won't. I've taught them over and over and over. And the man said, "Well, I'm doing a documentary," and said, "Would you mind me just kind of testing things out?" And said, "We're going to film this," and said, "You can be in a van, air conditioned, heated, whatever it was, and you can be watching it, and at any point you want to stop the experiment, that we'll do it." The man came through, and they was on a playground on different things, and I can't whistle that good, but he whistled, and he called, and he said, "Here, Spot, here, Spot," and he'd go up to the child, and he'd say, "Have you seen Spot?" And they'd say, "No," and he'd say, "Come help me look for Spot," and they'd say, "Oh no," one of them said, "No, I can't do that," and so he just kept on, and there was a gate out right there, and he went by and he said, "Here, Spot, have you seen Spot?" And he held his hand out and said, "Come on, help me find Spot." And he took them right out the gate. So we must teach our children. We must help our children. If we don't teach them, and if we don't impress them, be a role model for them, somebody will take that over and do it for us. I've enjoyed getting this for you. I know it's probably a little different than my other videos, but I love children. I feel like this is important, very important. So until next time, may God bless you.